Well, let's add those lines that delineate the veranda area. The new path will come up here and there'll be some stairs leading to it. We need to add this line here and across. So right click, line from that point there, remembering that polar is still on, we can run vertically down 1000 units or millimeters and then come across 2000, and then we can snap and just jump to that corner there. And so if we've completed the house footprint, and we can check all of the measurements that we've placed so far. You might like at this stage to experiment with a tool that applies dimensions. So if we say linear dimensions, can we run from there, and we want to get the linear dimension to that point there, and then pull away some distance down, and then we want another dimension across here, so we right click, dim linear from that point there to that point, and then as we pull down, just take a moment just to line things up horizontally. If your 3750 here is not centered to your liking, you can just move things across so the dimensions are going in. But we forgot one key thing. We were previously drawing on a layer called hardscape. I suggest what we need to do is be working on the dim layer as we add these dimensions. And to tidy up, I'll select those dimensions and just move them to that layer, and it's very easy to move them by just selecting them and doing that. So now, there they are. Now you might want to, at this point, adjust things a little. You could get hold of that corner and move it down like so, and then pick this dimension and pull it down to about that same point. This one could come down just a little. This is just prettying things up. There's nothing classy about or onerous about that type of drawing. So there's our dimensions now going in. So what I'd experiment with now is go to your layers and click on it. And here's hardscape and dimension. Both of them have entities on them. Our hardscape layer here has 10 entities, whereas the dim's got the 2 new dimensions on them. So if we needed to, and the tick denotes that the dimension layer is active, let's bring this back in. We'll put layer 0 as the current layer, and we can turn off dim. And there we are. I hope you can see at this point the usefulness of separating out your design into various layers. I'll leave it to you to add dimensions, further dimensions, but we're basically completing the geometry now. I'll come over here and we'll zoom out. So we've drawn all the lines. We need a new line just running up there along the side of the building. So right click, line, again an arbitrary distance. We'll roughly line it up with the line over here. And let's come back in here, pan across, and remember we spoke about 880 as the offset to the boundary. Do we have one over here? Yeah, we do. That one is a 900 offset. So you have an offset tool. You might like to experiment with it. So under modify, come down here to offset, and let's do this first one. The prompt, so you do have to look down here in the command line area. We're asked to select the object to offset. That's that new edge of the building there. We're then asked to specify a through point. The prompt occurs at the point of the cursor and also down in the command area. So we right click and set a distance. Type 900 and we'll enter. The next prompt says specify the point on the side to offset, so we can do that. And then we come over here. There'll be no point in just selecting this one immediately. We need to set a new through point, then pick the object to offset and come back to distance. And I've even forgotten what that was. I think it was 880, but I can't read it and do the movie at the same time. And I'll cancel from it. So now I can get back over here and just check. As in fact it was 880. So we can now repeat the offset, pick it. The side to offset is that, and exit. So if we look again at our base plan or mud map, a line now extends right down here. Now I'd be inclined to leave it. We could just extend this line here just by editing its length there or pulling it down. I'd be inclined to put a new line there, jumping to that end, and then just, not arbitrary, but just indicate a distance, and we'll deal in a little while with that distance and set it accurately. And we want to do the same over here, like so. So things are starting to take shape. We don't have accurate dimensions yet, but it looks as though we've measured from that corner of the house there to the actual front boundary. So we could find that front boundary by simply offsetting this one, and maybe we can offset all. That one, that one, that one, and that one there. And then if we come over here, I read that that's 10 meters from there to there, so we could offset again. I can't access it easily with a right click, so I want to modify and offset, and I need a distance of 10 meters. And we'll okay that, and I have to pick those again. Sorry. Oh, we've managed to do that one without any trouble at all. Offset distance. Yeah, that was not smart, so we can just pick it and erase it, but we can offset this one. So just to check our work, we'll measure from, say, the end of that line to the end of that line, and it should be exactly 10 meters. So now we just want to join these, and that can be done relatively easily, but by accident rather than design, this in fact is the area that we want to put our front entrance gate to. We have a custom gate in that area there, and we'll move it and come in to the veranda. So we're making quite reasonable progress. Don't forget, save your drawing. And we left our layer set to 0. I'd be inclined to come back to hardscape, and I just want to make sure that these are drawn on the hardscape layer, and they are, because we offset an existing one. Well, let's imagine that in discussions with your client, you learn that they wish to put some pot plants at strategic points on the veranda, either side of the entrance. You now have an opportunity to put a circle representing the two pot plants, the feature ones. So we can draw a circle, and we have some options. In this case, we've just said we want about a 300mm diameter pot plant. So let's center. Now, we're not terribly interested in precision here, so we'll just say it'll sit there, and we pull out, and the prompt's asking us for the diameter of the circle. So I can just hit 300, and then we can copy this circle. You can do that by jumping to the midpoint and just moving across. So that represents our pot plants sitting on the veranda. But your client is saying to you, I want a formal path leading here because I want a lawn in there, and I want to have some sort of elliptical shape for the lawn, and I want to stick to relatively formal. So what we'll do then is, and we've sketched out with them this sort of shape, and they agreed that's about the sort of shape path they want. So how best to construct that with CAD? So what I've done, I've put a dimension here, the distance from there to there. So what I've done, is just draw a path along the midpoint of that line where my wavy line was drawn when talking to the client. So we're going to organize to have a center line, if you like, for the path. And we might need to, what I want to do is change my drawing color to red so you can see what's happening here. And I'll change the line weight to quite thick, so you'll see a thick red line as I draw. So we're going to use the line command, draw, line. We're going to go to the midpoint of this line here. Of course, it's already jumping because the line's there. But actually, let's just go back here, and we'll take off endpoint. And I'll use single O snaps. Object snap is on, but I'll just pick the snap that I want at the point. So I'm going to draw a line. Now I'm asked for a from point. Oh, well, I want the center of that line that runs through there. So I just pick this O snap. That one is a midpoint. So it finds the midpoint. Now we've got polar running, if you can see that in the status line, and I've put a little dimension there. It says we're going to run 1500 units or millimeters down in that direction. So let's just type it. And in goes that red line. Now I wanted to show you that you can draw a line at any angle. This one's going to run at an angle of 270 down in that direction. As long as we've got the dots flowing out from it, like so, and we have now, we can, so it's an angle of, 315. I keep wobbling the mouse around. That's better. And 3,300 is the distance I want. Then hold the mouse down and pan up, come down again. 3 meters, 3,000, and enter. Then I'll come down in that direction, which will be 225, and we want 2960. I'd be inclined to go a little higher, 2970, 2970, and that's fine. So we have a series of lines from here to here to here, and notice that our path is relatively consistent in that area. So let's set our offset to 600 millimeters, and then we'll have a consistent 1200 millimeter path running through here. In order to do an offset, we need to join these lines. So I'll select them. You may notice that there are other lines, the original lines, the non-red lines are underneath there, but we'll concentrate on the red ones to make it easier for you to see. So what I'm going to do is right-click and use a join command. So it's one continuous polyline, if we look over here in the properties box. And now we can offset and pick that polyline, and right-click. Its distance is 600, so specify the point on the side to offset. So we click one side like so, and then repeat the command again, object to offset, and there. And at this point, we can remove that one, and that reveals that white line that was there. I may leave that one there because I'll come back to it. These red lines are only for your benefit. So we have a path. We're going to need a small short line there behind the gate. We can walk. The client gets a formal path, but we end up at the formal path with quite a wide landing space, which is what, of course, the client wants. Well, I've cleaned up things and extended the various things, done some minor trimming. So we're now left with a design for a 1200 millimeter path that will run around there and then open up. Let's just confirm distances. So if we say we're going to go near, and the symbol for near is this one here, near to that one and perpendicular to that one there, and we get precisely 1200, which is what we expect. Whereas if we repeat the distance and go near to this one and then perpendicular there, we've now got a 2 meter wide path at the landing point of the formal path crossing what will be a lawned area. So we've made real progress, and we've been talking to the client, seen a hand sketch. We've agreed on this design, and we've got to concentrate our attention on a retaining wall and a lawn and start putting some planting in, but progress has been definitely made. So the path is certainly taking shape. A couple more edits will be required. We need to remove those, and this line needs to be, this white line, extended to the red line. So we use modify and extend. We're asked to select a boundary, that'll be this one, and then the object to extend, which is the white line. And then we want to issue the trim command, modify trim, and that will be the cutting edge. Think of it as a guillotine just coming down, and then pick the object to trim, and it's gone off. Another similar sort of editing command, remember what we're trying to achieve is a 1200 millimeter path coming through here and then opening up to the entrance to the veranda. So the other sort of complementary command is an extend command. So modify and extend, we're asked to select a boundary, and that will be the boundary, and then the object to extend will be that one.